Nobody taught you how to be wealthy. Not your parents, not schools, not your teachers. And this is not by accident. This is actually societal's design. This was intentional. What I want you to understand today, and what we're going to talk about today, I'm not going to teach you tactics. I'm not going to teach you budgeting. I'm not going to teach you some side hustle. What I'm going to teach you is the actual history and how wealth has been created in every era. Because you have to understand how wealth was built. And once you finally understand how wealth was built, you'll understand why you don't have it. Because most of us have the mentality that today is the hardest time in history to make money. Why? Because we looked at our grandparents and we saw how they did it. And some of them went to work and worked a job and were able to buy a house, buy land, cars, whatever the case may be. Some were able to retire and live off that retirement. And now we are bombarded today with all the things that we won't have. All the things about 401ks. We have companies closing down. We don't even know if our job is going to survive long enough if we retire. We don't know if Social Security is going to hold out. And we're struggling and we're stressed out about this. And the thing about it is, I find interesting, the school system was never built to teach you this. Here's the thing I want you to sit in your mind and understand as it comes to the educational system that we have. You go through the educational system for 13 years, from kindergarten all the way up to graduation, and you come out knowing nothing about money. Nothing about investing, nothing about stocks, bonds, nothing about ROIs, nothing about investment banking, nothing about insurance. You know none of these things. And this is not by accident. This is actually by design. They may teach you about how to save money. They may teach you about how to budget. But the educational system was never designed to create financially free people. What it was designed was to produce workers. What I call the new slaves. It's designed to create passive slaves. It's designed to create slaves who follow directions, slaves who follow orders, slaves who know how to take lead from someone else, not to create leaders, not to create individuals willing to build for themselves, but individuals willing to work for someone else. Proverbs 4:7 says, wisdom is the principal thing. So get wisdom. And in all you're getting, get understanding. And here's the understanding I want you to know that they never taught you, is that wisdom actually costs you so much when you don't have it. Every year that you spend financially illiterate is the wealth that moves away from you into someone else's hands. That's what I want you to understand. But the good news is, I'm here to tell you, I'm going to teach you what the schools never taught you so that you can learn what is going on as it pertains to wealth. In every era, wealth belonged to the owners. It may not make sense to you right now, but I want you to understand as you listen and stay on this video, you'll understand more and more what that means. Because here's the truth. Across every economic age in human history, from the agricultural age to the age that we are in now, Wealth always belonged to the owners of the assets. But what is an asset? The asset, an asset is the thing that makes you money. That is simple enough. An asset is just the thing that makes you money. Now think about it this way. If income was water and the wealthy own the wells, then everyone would come to the well with their bucket and they would pay for their water. And they went home. But the person who owns the well, that's the person who's wealthy, not the one who consumes what's in the well. And the difference between the well and the water, the tree and the fruit, the farm and the food, the boat and the fish, is the wealthy are concerned about the source, while everyone else, the poor, are concerned about the supply. And until you get to the point where you are more concerned about the source and how to own the source instead of the supply, you will never be wealthy. And it's not about being greedy, or it's not about being exploitive of people. It's about understanding the principle that has been operating since the beginning of time. People who own income generating assets build wealth. Plain and simple. That's how it works. And the problem is, society has been teaching you that people who have money are evil or bad or have bad intentions or ill intentions. And the truth of the matter is, every person that I know who has been rich and wealthy have been very kind and generous people. But that's the way society wants to play it up. On TV and in movies, they want to show you these evil people. Most bad guys in movies are wealthy, rich people. You got Superman, and his arch enemy is Lex Luthor. It's a billionaire. Like, it is by design that it has been teaching us since we were children to hate wealth and to work for them. Well, what I want to do is give you the understanding that in order for you to understand the mystery of wealth, you have to understand the history of wealth. So let's go through that. Ever since the beginning of time, so we say 0, all the way up to the 1700s, we were in what was called the agricultural age. Just type agro age. We were in the agricultural age. During the agricultural age, there were two classes. You had the rich and you had the poor. And the rich were the people who owned land. And if you own land, you were rich. And if you didn't, you were poor. Plain and simple. And the thing about this is, because there's only two classes, if you were not in one of the classes, if you were not in the rich class, you never became rich. You always stayed poor. And we're talking from the beginning of time. Some people look at this and like, well, that's only a couple thousand years. No, we're talking about from the day that Adam and Eve fell and left the garden, time started. And we have BC, and now we're in AD. Now we're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of years. We were in the agricultural age. And there were two classes, two types of people, rich and poor. And during that time, like I said, if you did not own land, you were poor. You never became rich. During that time, they believed that this was God's design. He designed me to be rich. You were born into wealth, or you were born into poverty. And guess what? If you were rich, you had the source, which was the land. And if you were poor, you worked the land for the owners. Until you retired? No. You worked until you died. And then some people say, well, then your kids take over. No, your kids were working already with you. They were already working the land too. And that's how life was until we came to a new era. What had to happen? We came into what is called the industrial age. From 1700s to 1950, we had the industrial age. The industrial age. What happened was people had decided that we need to figure out a way to make more money off of this land. And the way to make more money off of this land is we got to actually cultivate the land faster. And humans can only do so much with their bare hands. And so what they decided to do was they made machines. And they built machines. And so the people who built machines, for the first time in history, if you were poor and you had the understanding, the wherewithal, the wisdom to build a machine to cultivate their land, you finally became rich. And that never happened ever in history. And so, if you were able to make machines and build machines, you actually made money. So wealth creation, poor finally became rich. What happened during this time period? You know what else was built during this time period? Factories were built. Factories were built because they were the places that made the machines, the things that made life more easy and convenient for you. Now we need people to work these factories. But factories is a little bit different than working land. It's a little more dangerous than working land. So what else was created during this time period? Schools. The schools that we know today, because there are schools prior, but the schools that we know today were made during this time frame. You ever wonder why you go to school and you have bells every day, you have time clocks, you have a lunch period at a certain time? Why? Because these were things that were used in factories. Factories used to have bells and whistles to know when to clock in, clock out. It's time to go home. You had a lunch period, and so you had to operate in schools to learn how to work a factory. And that's what they did. They produced new slaves to work at the factory. And then eventually, college became very popular. Why? Because we needed people not just to work at the factory, but we need people to run these factories. I don't want to run it. I own it. I don't want to run it. I need someone else who can run it. So I need you to go to school to learn how to run this factory. And then colleges became very popular. Everyone wanted their kids to go to college. Why? Because we don't want you working just as a factory slave or just as a field just in the field as a slave. We want you to move up, to become a little bit more than what you were before, and now you can manage it. Now you can manage the factory, or now you can manage the field, or whatever the case may be. And the funny thing about it is, what's interesting about it, we don't live in the industrial age anymore. But what has changed about schools? Not much. Still churning out, producing slave mentality people willing to work for someone else. But then we move to another era. And what's the next era that we move to? We move to the distribution age. And so that is 1950, 1950s to 1978 is the distribution. Distribution age. This era came because these factories started producing so much stuff. They had to figure out a way how to get it to more places in the world, get it to more parts of the United States, get it to across seas, across the air, whatever the case may be. So we started using these things that we have made, trains, the things that we have made, planes, and we now use them to distribute our products that we have made. That makes us more money. What else was produced during this time? We started seeing outlet malls and major stores, all pretty much because of one person, Sam Walton. If you don't know who Sam Walton is, I'm pretty sure you're familiar with his store, Walmart. Sam Walton had the idea that why would it make sense for you to go to a bunch of different little stores here, mom and pop stores? Why can't you come to one major location and get everything that you need from that one major location? And then Walmart was built. Walmart was created. Out of the idea of Walmart, then we eventually started having mini malls. And then malls were created. Now we have all kinds of little stores and whatnot in one single location. And during this time, if you own stores, if you own distributing companies, if you own planes, trains, automobiles, if you were actually able to build department stores or malls or whatever case may be, you made money. And so wealth creation was the way wealth was changing from the old mindset of two classes, the rich and the poor. It has transitioned into something else. During this time, we started seeing 401ks made. We started seeing people retire. Retirements became a thing. And that's the reason why our grandparents are so adamant about us working a job and retiring from a job, because it worked for them during their era. And then from that era, we moved into a new time. So from 1978 to roughly about 1994, we have the technology age. We all know the big names, Bill Gates. We know some people actually may have forgotten, but Steve Jobs. We start to see technology. Now, the thing about this age, 1978 to 1994, if you had tech know-how, if you knew how to build a computer or operate a computer in a certain way, if you knew how to build software, if you knew how to make parts for a techno machine or whatever case may be, then you made wealth. But the thing about this, if you started learning technology in this age, you kind of already missed the boat. So like when we talk about Steve Jobs, we talk about Bill Gates, these guys were building technology way before 1978. They were doing that stuff back in the 60s. It was starting to take off during this time period. And so if you had tech know-how, you created wealth. Then that led to the next era, 1994 to roughly about 2003. Oh, 2003. We had the information age. The information age, info age. Good thing about the information age, who owns information? Everybody and nobody. But if you knew how to leverage it, or you knew how to put it in one space where people can go to find information, you created wealth. During this time, we had websites come out. I mean, I don't know if you remember Ask Jeeves. Ask Jeeves came. We have MySpace was big during this time period. Yahoo, Google came out during this time period. I mean, it was kind of new, but Google came out during that time period. And if you were able to leverage information, if you controlled the flow of information, you control wealth. And so, if you had search engines, if you had chat sites, if you had email sites, you were able to create wealth. Then I moved on to another age. Then you had from 2003 to 2008, you had entertainment age. The entertainment age. And so during that time, if you were able to entertain people, but entertain them sometimes in an educational way, you were able to create wealth. During this time, you had sites like YouTube come out. During this time, we started seeing Hollywood make millions and millions, and to the point where they started making billions of dollars because people were more focused on entertainment. During this time, a couple things came out as well. We had the invention of the iPhone. Steve Jobs now, he decided that he understood the age that he was in and where it was going. And he was like, people are not going to be at home just watching TV, are not going to be in the movies theaters just watching movies. But now you can do it on a device. This device you can carry around with you. You can carry the internet with you. It's not just a phone that calls, it's the internet. It takes pictures, it plays music, and it's a phone, all in your pocket. So, if you were able to educate and entertain, you created wealth. So if you were an actor, if you were a comedian, if you were a producer, if you were studio owners, they made the bulk and majority of the wealth during this time. Before we go on to the next era, what I want you to see, what is happening with these times. See, we had the beginning of time up to the 1700s. From the 1700s to the 1950s, from 1950s to 1978, 1978 to 1994, 1994 to 2003, 2003 to 2008. Here, during the agricultural age, you had thousands and thousands of years to tool up and figure it out. from the agricultural age and industrial age. The industrial age, you only had a couple hundred years to tool up and figure it out. In the distribution age, you had a couple decades. In the techno age, you had a little bit over maybe a decade and a half. And in the information age, you literally had less than 10 years. And in the entertainment age, you had 5 or 6. So during the times, you start seeing it gave you less and less time to tool up and to get a foundation to understand how to build wealth. That's why it seems like it's harder and harder to do. You have less and less time. And so for those of you that keep pushing your kids to go to school, make sure they have a plan and they understand what they're going for. Why? Because you may not have 4 years to waste. Because by the time you get your degree, graduate, all the information that you learn is more than likely obsolete. That's how it was for me. When I went to school, I got my degree in psychology. When I was there, we were using the DSM-4. The year that I graduated, they dropped the DSM-4 and started using the DSM-5. And some of the information in DSM-4 was not useful. If, of course, that's how that works. That's why they needed a new book. And so if you are going to become a doctor, go to school, please. Because if me or my family members are in your office, I definitely want to make sure that you know what you're talking about. If you are going to school to become an engineer, please do, because you need to know math. Because if I'm driving that bridge, I hope it doesn't fall apart on me. But make sure that if you're sending your kids to school, it's for a reason, because we don't want them to spend years in school trying to get a BS and come out with a BS degree. We don't have time to waste, because our time is limited. And you don't know by the time you get out what era you're going to be in. And so we move on to the next era. From 2008 to 2021, we were in what's known as the partnership age. Well, what's the partnership age? Well, Minister Crush, what's the partnership age? The partnership age is the time in which average Joe Schmo, me and you, could partner up with billion-dollar corporations and make money. What was happening? What happened during this time? Somebody, good old Steve Jobs, the innovator, created something and put it out to the public called the App Store, the Apple Store. He created something where people could say, he would say, if you would create an app and put it on my platform, I will put it out to the masses and you can make money. And from that, the App Store made Apple, at the time, the largest and most wealthiest corporation in the world. Why? By just leveraging the people. By just partnering up with average you and me. And guess what? We both benefit. Millionaires were made off of the App Store just by giving them the opportunity to partner with a billion-dollar corporation. During this time, we also had Amazon. Amazon was on the brink of bankruptcy until they understood the era that they're in and pivoted. We can't just sell books. Well, here's an idea. We sell books and we distribute it to people. Why don't we just let them just send us whatever they make and we'll distribute it to people? They understood the era and they partnered with people. They partnered with the masses and made money. And then eventually Apple became the largest company in the world because they understood the era they were in. During this time was the rich boom, when you were able to partner with these companies, these billion-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies, and make money. Wealth creators, podcasters came out during this time. App creators came out during this time. And then something else happened during this time. The pandemic. COVID-19 happened during this time. And for a lot of people, that was such a disparaging, traumatic time. And it changed the outlook and the layout for the generations coming up after. Kids that were born post-COVID or kids that were in school during the COVID era, it changed the layout of the way society was. And for most people, they looked at it as a traumatic time. But the thing about it is, during 2019 to 2022, more millionaires were made during that time period than ever in history, like just in that short time period. Worldwide, 21 millionaires were made during that time period of COVID. Just in the United States alone, about 5 million millionaires were made. Just in the United States. Why? Because people lost their jobs. They lost their jobs and they had to figure it out. And for the first time in a lot of these people's lives, they had to not rely on what society told you to. The job. And they went home and they had a family and they said, we had to figure this out on our own. And they did. They used their mind and their creativity and created something, and it made them millionaires. Honestly, for myself, I wish I had lost my job. I didn't. I was an essential worker. And because I was an essential worker, I still went to work. And I thought I trusted in that job security. While someone else apart from me had to become intentional about wealth creation. While most of us who are still stuck at a job are less intentional about wealth creation and more intentional about security, quote unquote. And so, during that time, so many people became millionaires. What else is interesting about that? 2008 to 2021. What you need to look at that is, that's more years than its predecessor. For the first time in history, an era outlasted or lasted longer than the one previous of it. So things are changing a little bit in a good way. You're getting a little bit more time to tool up. But it's still important to understand what era you were in. Like for a lot of these companies, especially in the information age, two companies that I remember during that time period, you had Yahoo and you had Google. Yahoo ran it. They owned everything. They had all the money. And little old Google, this small little startup company that everybody said was going to be a bubble that's going to pop. They went to Yahoo and was like, hey, we want to come to you and we want to work with you, show us how, we can be like a subsidiary of you or whatever case may be. Yahoo was like, no, we're good. We don't need you. Google had to figure it out. And Google was like, cool. And they figured it out. And eventually, what did they do? crushed Yahoo and bought it. Another company that happened during that time, Blockbuster. Everybody remember Blockbuster? I love Blockbuster. You used to go there, you rent your videos and everything like that. We would have family night. Love those times. But then a small little company by the name of Netflix came. And for a lot of people who don't know what Netflix used to be, they're used to the streaming service. No, Netflix used to be a company that their idea was we would take movies and we would mail them to people. And then they can watch them and they rent them that way and then they return them in the mail. And kind of a shaky kind of business model because, probably a lot of loss there. But they went to Blockbuster and was like, hey, we want to partner with you. We have this idea, like you guys got the movies, you guys run it, you run the game, the gambit is all yours, and we want to come in and we want to add this to it. Now you can actually rent it through the mail. It's a great idea. Blockbuster's like, nah, we're good. We're Blockbuster. Netflix said, cool. They understood the era they were in and the time that they were moving into. And eventually they crushed Blockbuster. Blockbuster doesn't really exist anymore. Netflix is the biggest, largest streaming service in the world. You have to know the era that you're in. You have to understand the era. If you understand the history of wealth, you will unlock the mystery of wealth. And then we moved into another time. The time that we are in right now, 2021 until who knows when. And we know what era we're in. The AI age. The problem with a lot of people is they don't want to embrace AI. In every era, there was blessings and there were curses. There's good and there's bad. Anything that you get, you can use in a positive way or you can use in a negative way. Trust me, and AI is the same. But if you don't leverage AI, if you don't learn AI, if you don't learn how to use it, you are going to be left behind. The reason why it seems so difficult to make money today is because you are trying to make money in an era that no longer exists. You're trying to do it in a time that's long gone. We are in a new age now. So if you learn how to use AI in a certain particular smart way, you can make money. The funny thing about this time, even children make money during this time. Children are becoming millionaires because they know how to leverage AI. They know how to create something. We got content creators who are kids who are making millions of dollars. Like podcasts is never going nowhere. Now I think podcast is starting to boom now. Even though people were doing it in the previous eras, podcast is about to boom and blow up. But because you think it's oversaturated, you won't do it. App creators have never stopped, and we're going to keep getting more app creators. Like, because you are afraid and you don't trust the era that you are in, or don't know the era that you're in, you're not leveraging the knowledge and wisdom that is out today. You need to be leveraging AI. You need to be creating content. You need to be developing some kind of app or whatever case may be. You need to be using the knowledge and wisdom that you have in a way that you can distribute it to other people. That's how you create wealth. It's not working a job. And I'm not telling anybody to quit the job because I still work a job. Now the job I'm working for is a lot different. I'm working for myself, but I still work a job because I know that I'm still on that wealth journey with you. I'm still creating with you. And so I'm never telling anybody to quit their 9 to 5 today, because that's not how that works. But if you are working a job from 9 to 5, what are you doing from 6 to 9? Are you using 6 to 9 to build your own dream? That is the only way that you're going to learn how to create wealth. That is the only way that you're going to unlock this mystery. But now you know the history of wealth. The question is, what are you going to do with it? If you learned something, if something spoke to you in this lesson, like, subscribe, and join me every week, because I'm telling you, we are going to build people in a wealthy, successful way every single week here. Until next time, I'm Minister Crush. Peace.